Hi guys, Aceface back with another video for you. This is my review on the Las Vegas Open 2018. Right guys, so before we get started, if you can, it helps me out loads if you can press that sub button, and also if you press the bell button, then you can keep up with all the latest content that drops on the channel. If you want to follow me further, I post a lot on Instagram. I'm very active there, so you can catch up with me there, and I also put updates on my Facebook page, and if you want to support me further and be an absolute boss, you can jump over to my Patreon page, and you can become a patron there. It really helps me out tons and tons, and it helps me do what I'm doing. So and all the guys that have jumped on there so far, I can't thank you enough. You guys are absolute legends, and all the names of all the patrons are at the end of the video. So jumping into this very special 2018 Las Vegas Open chat. So before I get on, I didn't actually get that many photos, that much footage, so most of this is just going to be audio. So by all means, grab a paintbrush, grab your model, grab a cup of tea, and settle down and have a little listen. This is not going to be a short video. I'm going to go through in depth. I'm going to split the video into a few different pieces. It'll all be just one video, but I'm going to start off with talking about the slight amendments I made to the list from the last video, a few tweaks and why I made those tweaks. Then I'm going to talk you through the actual event itself, step by step, all my games, how they went, and a little bit about that. Then I'm going to talk to you a little bit about my overall thoughts on the tournament, how I went, kind of what I think worked well, what I didn't think worked well, and any other information at the end. This will also provide the start, if you like, of my next set of advanced Tyranid tactics videos, which will drop very, very soon. And after I finish filming this video, I'm going to do my very first one, which will be on the Tyrant, the absolute monster that is the Tyrant. So if you're excited about that, then obviously stay tuned, because that video will be out soon. But anyway, let's jump straight in and talk about the list. So I'm going to try and put the list up on the page. Hopefully you can see it now. But basically I made a few amendments from the last video. So the very, very kindly Mark, a good buddy of mine, helped out by playing my LVO list at the Last Chance Open, my own event, just 2 weeks ago. That was great because we play the same missions, so it gave me a pretty good indication of what worked and what didn't work, what I needed to kind of tweak. Mark's a very good player, and his kind of insight on how the list worked was very, very helpful. So in the end he came second, so he did incredibly well with a list he hadn't played before, and yeah, it performed incredibly well, only losing one game in 6. So as a starting point, very, very happy. But there are a few tweaks that I wanted to make. The first one was I wanted to see whether I could squeeze in another Tyrant. So my proposition was to run 5 Tyrants. Very, very impressed with how they perform, and I saw the potential that maybe I could squeeze in a 6th. Now there are people out there running 7, and Simon, a very good Tyranid player, won the Caledonian Uprising, I think the whole name of the event is. But basically Cali, very, very big, well-known British tournament, one of the biggest in the country, and he won it with Tyranids. He won it running 7 Tyrants, and some Morlocks and a combination of other things. So the missions are slightly different for the ITC. I did take a look at his list, see whether I could kind of draw anything that I thought was really strong from it, and it's a very, very good list. But the way that the ITC missions work, I still favoured mine and how it kind of worked and how it played out on the table. So I didn't want to move too far away from it. I wanted to stay to the roots of that list, which was really based around that Kronos brigade. I didn't want to move away from the brigade. I love having the 12, 13 command points, which you kind of get. So, you know, got the extra one from the Supreme Command Detachment in my list. But that having those command points really crucial to my game plan. Lots of tricks that I can do, and sacrificing a few of those points to go for something slightly different, I wasn't really favouring. So I wanted to stick to that, and because of that, it meant that I didn't want to be going to 7 tyrants. So I squeezed in a 6th. What I did was I dropped out the gargoyles from my original list. They weren't really doing much. They didn't do much for Mark. The original plan for them was a bubble wrap for the tyrants. Didn't need it, not essential. So they went by the wayside. I also dropped a couple of Hive Guard, a really difficult decision because Hive Guard are still a very good unit, but I thought that they potentially weren't performing as well as some of the other units in the army, and I thought they were a good sacrifice to get that tyrant in. I reduced the size of the termagant unit slightly, and with those kind of points savings, I was able to get myself another tyrant. How I was going to build that tyrant really wasn't too sure, but I decided to go for the double devourers, 24 shots. I think it's really solid. It just gave me loads and loads of shooting in my list, so I think that was the best way to go. It was also, there was some modelling restraints as well. The Last Chance Open was barely days before the Las Vegas Open, so for me to make too many amendments wasn't going to be too easy. So due to that, I kind of went with the double devourer tyrant, and he was ready to go, so he went in there. The other amendment I made was I decided to move away from the Kraken detachment in my Supreme Command and move that to a Leviathan. And the reason why I decided to do that was I believe that that extra 6-up save was going to be more valuable and more consistently good than having the be able to come out of combat and recharge. Whether that was the kind of case, you know, we'll talk about that in a second, but that was the game plan, and I thought that would make my tyrants that little bit more survivable, having 6 of them and having 4 of them that were going to have that really kind of extra save on top. I thought was too good an opportunity to miss out on, so I kind of went with that. So that was the list. Really happy with it. It had proven particularly powerful in practice, so it had come. So I only dropped a game in the winter tournament that we had, so I was in the final game there, and Mark came second as well. So it only dropped like a couple of games in about 10, so I was really happy that it would do the job, and that it would definitely prove a tough opponent for anybody. So plans going into the Las Vegas Open, well, I really felt I had something to prove, and that's probably why I haven't got much footage, because I did have my game face on. To give you a little update, so the last 2 Las Vegas Opens, I took my towel first time out, and really had my arse handed to me, to be honest with you. Didn't play a lot of practice, particularly in the format. And the meta was very different from what I was used to. I went way too elite, and came out really not doing so well. So I won 2 games and lost 4 in my first outing. Second outing, I was really pushing for that best Tyrannid overall for the year, and Tyrannids were very poor end part of 7th. So I allied in quite a big contingent of Gene Stealer Cult. Run it a lot closer. I had some bad luck in a few of the games. My dice were pretty cold, but I did manage to get an extra draw. So I went 2 wins and a draw, 3 losses. So 2 outings out of the Las Vegas Open. Really felt that I had something to kind of prove, particularly something to prove to you guys. You know, I'm the Tyrannid guy, and I hadn't really proved that I could perform at the top level with the NIDs. So the choice was to go with NIDs, and I really wanted to prove that I could do well. Did I think I could win it? I did think I could win it, but I knew it'd be tough. And when you're playing against players that are playing that format week in, week out, and have got quite a few majors under their belt, I knew it was going to be tough. But I definitely thought that the Tyrannid list could absolutely, you know, cause an upset and do some work. It's an extremely good list, and it's particularly good against Aeldari, which are the meta and heavily favoured in the States at the moment. So Coming into the event, my expectations were high, but I also was realistic, and I knew it's a tough event, and if I could come away with maybe 3 or 4 wins and better what I'd done previously, well, that would be a start. And if I could push it further than that, well, who knows. So let's go through the games, and I'll talk through them in a little bit of detail. Sketchy potentially on some of the lists, but I'll do my best to recall exactly the event, the list as a whole. So my first game was up against a mixed chaos. So, in fact, I say it was a mixed chaos. I don't think that doesn't give the guy the credit. It wasn't a mixed chaos. It was a full Chaos Space Marine army with a Chaos Knight. So that, or Renegade Knight as they call them. So he had 2 Demon Princes. He had quite a lot of cultists. He had Dark Apostle. He had a unit of Obliterators. He had a big unit of like 5 quad heavy bolters. The Reaper chassis put out an incredible amount of shots. He had a unit of Havocs. So it was a really good list, and obviously he had a knight with a chainsaw and a battle cannon, as well as the rocket pod on top. So a good solid list, good first test for the Nids to see how they went. The guy had some problems in registration, so we kicked off a little bit late, so I knew that if I was going to try and score these points, I had to be ambitious, I had to believe that I could win this game, and I had to go fast. So I made a few mistakes, but I came out with a good solid victory. So it was 24, I believe, to about 14 roughly. So I did take a really good solid victory from the first game. Very, very happy with it. Basically the Tyrants did what they do best. They kind of flew forward, they took the damage, they weren't hurt too much, didn't lose any first turn. Took out the key things, took out the Obliterators with the Hive Guard and the Biovores, and then the Tyrants kind of got in the lines, started dealing with cultists, managed to smite out or do some damage on the Princes as they kind of came forward to counter. The Bolters did a lot of work. I think I lost 2 Tyrants to the Bolters before I managed to get to them and saw them off. The Havocs weren't a problem, we dealt with them pretty quickly. So overall good victory. Again, Knight wasn't a problem. Mortal wounds from the Biovores and the Hive Guard doing the work there. In fact, this was probably the star performance of the tournament for the Hive Guard. They do really, really well against Knights. As soon as the Knight got in range, double tapping those Hive Guard took a lot of damage from that Knight. That strength 8 doing D3 damage is really, really solid. So as the first game, 1 victory out the way, which is great. Wanted to make sure that I got off to a good start, and that's exactly what I did. So we rocked into the second game. Second game, as kind of predicted, Eldar played a really good player, to be fair. High performing ITC player, used to kind of the format, knew what he was doing. Confident player, which is what I like. So we both came into this game pretty confident. We knew our list pretty well. He wasn't intimidated or worried by the Tyrants, which a lot of players were throughout the weekend. When you see 6 Flyrants rocking up on the table, it is a bit of a, what do I do with this? This guy knew what he was doing. He had confidence in his game plan. He had a mixed Eldar force, so he had a bit of Yunari, bit of Harlequins, and a bit of sort of Alatok, so I think 3 detachments in all. So he had some Harlequins in some of their transports. He had a couple of units of them. He had a Solitaire. He had a couple of Troop Masters. He had obviously a lot of Reapers, so he had 1 big unit of Reapers, then he had some smaller units. I think in all we had about 15-20 Reapers, which are obviously the thing at the moment. And he had a Wave Serpent, some Banshees, and might have had some Hawks, can't quite remember, but in all, very solid list. Very fast, very aggressive, quite good in combat, which is unusual for Eldar. Not that they can't do it, but obviously with the inclusion of those Harlequins in there and the Banshees, as well as the Solitaire and the Troop Masters, he had the ability to really do some damage in assault and get in my lines quickly, and that's exactly what he did. So he ran at me. It caused an awful lot of trouble, dispatching a couple of tyrants fairly easily, but in return I did get in his lines. I got through his, so he had some rangers. I managed to get through the rangers without too much trouble, and then started chipping away at the Dark Reapers. When those Dark Reapers go down, it's quite often the Eldar army follows quite close behind, and with this one, he took a very heavy lead in the tournament, in the game, but I managed to really start to build up those points late game. Those secondaries for me quite often come late, because I do take old school most of the time, which means killing the warlord, killing something in the last turn, and line breaker. So they're quite end game tournament missions. That works quite nicely, because sometimes the players can get a little bit overconfident, and then you can swing it last minute by causing damage when you still got stuff that's late game, and that works really well for me, because the tyrants quite often keep going, and they're very difficult to dispatch. They're in your lines late game, so they're getting those points, and that's what's happened. So this one came to a draw, so it was a 22-22 draw off the top of my head, but yeah, very close draw. He was a very good player. We both came out of it at the end of it knowing that with that high score, we still factored that we weren't out for the count. We still knew that if we wins for the rest of the tournament, there's a good opportunity that we might both, or one of us, make those finals, so make that top 8. So overall, pretty happy. It showed that I could easily dispatch Reapers, pretty easily, without too much trouble whatsoever. So I rocked into the next game. In the next game, I had Aeldari again. A different spin, but the same thing. Very heavy Dark Reapers. Again, Ynnari. Again, they had Hawks. This time, had a slight spin on it. Had the big Dark Eldar boat. I can't remember what the name of it is, but basically the big Dark Eldar boat. With loads of guys inside, Archons. He had some Cabalite warriors as a bit of a screen, and some rangers as well, so quite a nice screen. In fact, I found it quite difficult because he had a very big unit of Reapers. I found it quite difficult to get to them, and they caused me quite a lot of grief. We had long ways deployment. There's no way he was going to get to my base. I was way too far away, and the Biovores were doing work straight from the off. The Hive Guard started to get into the game late on, but didn't do that much. But again, the Tyrants, just too much to put down. Took out the screen first turn. Took a bit of damage on the Reapers, lost one first turn. He got intercepted as he came down with the stratagem. But I took that took the pain, ran into his lines, dispatched the Reapers, got in his face, started taking out characters, and took that game by a swing of about 4 points. So again, it was a good 24-18 victory, but took that one. Again, he wasn't a bad player, more used to playing Dark Eldar than Eldar, but still a competent player, and I think he was blown away by the sheer strength of the Tyranids. So that was the end of my first game, first day. I'd gone 2 wins and a draw, so I was happy with that. So I'd already equalled my best at the LVO in the first day, so fantastic start. I rocked into day 2, and the opponents were up overnight, so I looked at my opponent's list, and I made a mistake, guys. I made a big mistake. I underestimated this guy. I thought this is not going to be a game. He had taken Raven Guard. He had a couple of 3 or 4 units of scouts. He had the Knight Acheron, I believe his name is. So basically, he's got the Flamer and the Chainsword. He had 3 units of Devastators, 2 missiles, and 1 las cannon. and some characters. So he had Chapter Master with a jump pack, he had a librarian, he had the banner ancient, so that when one of his devastators was dying, he had an opportunity to shoot them again. But look guys, I'm going to be really honest, I completely and utterly underestimated the player and the list, and that, I suppose, is a big lesson for anybody, and quite a lot of us have done it in the past. It happens from time to time, and I just got too confident. So I looked at the list, I thought about what I'd already played. So I'd already played some really tough opponents and some really solid lists, and on paper I just didn't think this was that impressive, and I was too cocksure. I got very, very close to really learning the lesson in a bad way. So I deployed poorly. I wasn't too concerned about his knight. I was convinced that, like I did in the first game, I could dispatch a knight without too much trouble. But I deployed poorly. The actual terrain on that particular table was not as good as on some of the others, which didn't help my deployment, but I was still a bit slapdash. I didn't really think that the knight was going to get in any dangerous positions first turn. I didn't have my tyrants on the board, so again I'm thinking these devastators aren't going to do that much work, but I deployed things shabbily. I didn't hide things well enough. I didn't put things in the right position, bearing in mind that because I've got so many drops, I can almost see where the opponent is completely before I start deploying. So I easily could have countered the knight, but I just wasn't scared of him, I wasn't intimidated by him, and that was a bad mistake because he hit me, and he hit me hard. So first turn his knight ran forward, and he more or less almost tabled everything I had on the table. I didn't hide things that well, as I said. The devastators were able to shoot at things. I did keep my big unit of Biovores still alive, but I lost my Neurophrope character, I lost all my Hive Guard, I lost my Pyrovore, my my single Biovores, both units of Termagants. It was just brutal. I got to the end of the first turn and I thought, this is not going well. I've made some mistakes here and I'm going to pay for them. So I had very little left, and he'd gone so aggressive with his jump pack guys, his scouts, that I was also struggling to deploy the tyrants. So yeah, dangerous times. But the tyrants all got on. I managed to squeeze one on the left hand side of the board where his knight was, and also in range of a couple of units of scouts. The rest came in from the other side, and being able to get the one in closer to the knight was fantastic, because what that did was that drew attention from the knight. So even though all he did was kill one unit of scouts and put some damage on the other one, just managing to draw the knight out of position really started to swing things a little bit. So my tyrants came in, killed majority of their scouts, and then it was a case of, could we hold on? Could we hold on and start to apply the pressure? I rolled really hot on the 3 Biovores that were still alive, and I managed to dispatch almost a whole unit of devastators with those, which was really lucky. I rolled a couple of 6s, and did, you know, I think I did about 5. Yeah, I did about 5 mortal wounds, which was great. So from that point of view, got lucky. And then in his turn, he wasn't able to dispatch any of the tyrants on the right hand side of the flank. His knight then turned around to deal with the tyrant that had dropped in. He did kill him in 1 round, shot him, didn't even need to assault him. That tyrant was dead. But that had dragged the knight to the other side of the board, and the tyrants now could do some work. They then started to swing things, started to turn the tide, and that's exactly what they did. Dispatched a couple of characters pretty quickly. They started to really apply some pressure, took out a few more of the devastators, again starting to take away his sting, which worked really, really well. The knight turned around, started to move to the middle ground, put some work on one of the tyrants, didn't kill it that time, and then I really started to swing things. But it was so close because I'd taken so much damage at the beginning of the game through poor deployment and poor choices that I'd almost lost it without a chance of getting back. But again, that late game really helped me. Got in his lines, killed everything that was left, and left him purely with 2 single scouts and the knight. The problem with that knight is with losing the Hive Guard, if I was going to go after it with tyrants, I need to go after it with a lot of tyrants. If I didn't do the work, he could then dispatch multiple tyrants. So I decided to just avoid it and kind of just try and take the rest of the board and try and play the objectives, which is what I did. End of the game, we played the whole game, still wasn't 100% sure with where the points were, and I swung it by 2 points. Again, just down to the late game to take the win. So I took the victory from the teeth of defeat, and you know, learned a lot of lessons, learned a lot from that game, which is sometimes what you need. Yeah, the guy, and hats off to the guy, he played his list. Sorry, he played just a quality game. He didn't play. It wasn't about his list. It was about how he plays, and that's, you know, great credit to him, because his list on paper was not very powerful and actually wasn't that powerful. But he knew how to play it very well. He'd proven he could play it very well, and that's the way he did it. So got away with it. So went into game 5 with a chance still of making the top 8. 3 wins, 1 draw going into game 5. So game 5, played a lovely guy, top bloke, and a mixed Imperium list. And he had a real mix of all things. So I'll try and go through what he had. So he had some Admech and Skutari. So he had Cruel. He had 2-3 units of Vanguard. He then had a big unit of robots. I think it was 5, it might have been 6 of the robots. He then had a detachment of Astra Militarum, and in that detachment he had 3 Lima Russes. At least one was a tank commander. Might have even been more. Might have been a couple. In fact, might have even been all 3. But so they were battle cannon variants. He had plasma sponsons on 2 of them. Las cannons in the whole. So fairly formidable power coming from those. And then he had a couple of big units of guard. Again, a screen and a couple of mortars. He then had a Blood Angel detachment with a chapter master. Well, he'd upgraded him to a chapter master, made him Death Company. Not chapter master. Just think he'd upgraded him to Death Company. He had a big old axe, or a big old hammer, I should say. And then he had scouts. The scouts provided him the space. So it was a really well thought out, clever list. He had Cruel as his commander, meaning that those robots were going to be re-rolling all their hits. Very, very solid list, and it was always going to be a tough one. I'd played robots before, and they'd not scared me that much. But when I'd played them previously, they'd not been hitting me with mortal wounds. They'd not been using that stratagem. And wow, that stratagem hurt me a lot, guys. So basically, I had first turn. I decided to take it, and I killed all his screens, killed most of his guard, put some work on the Skutari. So at the end of turn 1, he basically had his heavy hitters left. He didn't really have anything else left. So he just had his Blood Angel captain to come in. He had his Lehman Russes, he had his robots, he had Crawl. And that was basically it. So pretty much killed everything else in his army first turn. I think there was 1 unit of guard left, and 1 unit of Skutari that had taken casualties. But I'd basically dispatched pretty much his entire small arms fire in turn 1. But then he hit me back, and he hit me back harder than anything else had done before. He showed that this list is not invincible. He showed that these tyrants can take damage. and wow, that mortal wounds from the robots, they hurt something rotten. So he dispatched 2 tyrants, took one onto 1 wound. One of the tyrants was taken down just through weight of fire. The other one chipped away majority of it with weight of fire, and then the Captain Blood Angel smacked him, hit him twice to kill him off, and then he took 1 tyrant down to 1 wound. So leaving me with 2 full strength tyrants and 1 with 1 wound. And I wasn't too close to him. Because of his bubble wrap, the likelihood is I'm not making it into combat to his robots this turn. So even though they're rooted to the ground now and they can't move, I've got to get to them, and I've got to get to them quick. And I couldn't make it in. So I did some work. I managed to take off 1 robot to try and reduce that firepower. The Biovores did a little bit of work trying to put down some spore mines, try and give them something else to think about. Hive Guard were out of range. That's the way it is. And then I had to take another volley, and I took the other volley to the face. That killed all the tyrants. So I lost 6 tyrants in 2 rounds of shooting from a combination of the battle cannons, the plasma, but massively the mortal wounds coming from the robots. And that smite, oh, I shouldn't say that smite, but that hurt. That hurt a lot. So what could I do then? So I dispatched the Blood Angel Captain, and I tried to do everything I could. So I had very little left. I had to try and get the Hive Guard in range, move them forward. They did manage to do a little bit of work. The Biovores were again pretty reliable, putting some hurt in. And yeah, we chipped away at a few other little bits and pieces, slowly but surely getting a few points, but not really enough. And that was more or less how it ended. So it was a bit stalemate at the end, because I had my deployment zone, he had his deployment zone. He couldn't move his robots into range, and you know, he's just trying to chip away with what he had. Most of what I had was hidden. I didn't want to give him easy victory points. I was trying to put rippers and whatever I could into gaps to try and score recon points. But he's blowing them away and killing more units every turn. So in the end, that one was a 24-18 loss. So disappointing, and that took me out of the running. But I was incredibly impressed. Incredibly impressed. Those robots are definitely a very, very good and a strong counter to Tyranids. They've got to roll hot, and I think he did roll quite hot. But if they roll hot, wow, they can do some serious work. So that's my 5th game out of the way. Come crashing to the ground after such a strong tournament, but I had 1 game left, and I wanted to make sure that I could try and finish the tournament in a good way. And my last opponent was a Tzeentch Chaos Demons army, headed up by Magnus. Loads of horrors, loads of reinforcement points. I think he was rocking the best part of 200 points of reinforcement points. He had a Demon Prince, he had some Exalted Flamers, the Changeling. It was a solid list, nice and themey, nice and fluffy, and he also had 3 units of Obliterators, so he had 9 Obliterators. But you know, it was a tough list. It was a tough list. But this is the first time that the Kronos really showed what they could do. We absolutely shut him down in the psychic phase, and that hurt him so much. The Tyrants showed what the difference in the new demons are, and annihilated horrors like they were going out of fashion. Even with a 4-up invuln on the pink horrors, without having that -1 to hit, I'm just chewing through horrors like you wouldn't believe, and causing damage all over the board. So in that one, I mean, to cut a long story short, I obliterated him. He scored 4 points. I scored 26, I believe. We only got to 3 turns, playing those horrors continuously, having to turn them into blue horrors, then into brimstone horrors. Took him a long time. So we didn't play as many rounds as I would have liked. But Magnus was obliterated turn 2. He took 6 wounds of himself just through perils, just due to Kronos and me using the stratagems. And then Biovores, Hive Guard did the rest. Yeah, it was a and probably my easiest win of the tournament. I was playing hard. I was not going to let another game go down, and I wanted to finish in style. So yeah, that was the end game. So in the end of the tournament, I finished on 4 wins, 1 draw, and 1 loss. So would I have taken that at the beginning of the tournament? Yes, I absolutely would have. It was a really good showing and a good result for the Nids. And due to that result, that put me just outside the top 50, in fact. I think 53rd was how I came. But what it also gave me was it gave me this. Ta-da! So I was the highest ranking Tyranid player by a good 20 places, I believe. And yeah, so I was chuffed to bits with that. So getting best Tyranid was more than I could have hoped for. I was chuffed to bits. It proved a lot of what I wanted. It proved that I could perform at the highest level, and that Nids could also perform at the highest level. Yes, I was gutted I didn't make that top 8, and realistically, with a win against the Astra Militarum and the robots, I would have made the top 8. And I think one of the most frustrating things are I did have the list to go all the way. So, and the reason why I say that might sound a bit cocky and a bit arrogant, but my Tyranid list is a perfect counter to Aeldar. Aeldar were all over the top 8 and ultimately came first and second, and both of those 2 lists, first and second, even though quality players, and I'm not saying that I can necessarily outplay them, but my list could easily outpower them. I had everything that I needed to really take out those top lists. So disappointed from that point of view, because if I'd made the top 8, I definitely would have had a shout at taking the whole tournament, because my list is very, very anti-meta, which is sometimes what you need to build a successful list, and that's exactly what it was. But look, chuffed to bits with that, absolutely chuffed to bits with that. So happy with the list, performed really, really well. So, my thoughts coming out of it. Well, my thoughts are ultimately that Flyrants are back. But what I would say is, and I am going to do a dedicated advanced Tyranid tactics video about Tyrants, which will predominantly be about Flyrants. But I want to say, the sky's not falling. Tyrant spam is a thing, 100%. But playing Tyrants and Flyrants in 8th edition is not the same as in 7th. There's a lot more variety. My Tyrants are all kitted out differently. They do very different things. They do a lot of melee. They do a lot of psychic powers. They do a lot of holding ground. They are not just that mobile gun platform that they were in 7th edition. They play very, very differently, and they're a lot of fun to play. Playing them in 7th, I didn't really enjoy playing them that much, which is why I was reluctant to play them again in 8th, but they play extremely differently, and they're a great, great solid unit. And yeah, so the Las Vegas Open, amazing event, amazing people, met so many cool characters, too many to name everybody, but yeah, loads of friends that I've made over the last few years, came back to see them again, which was great, and met loads of new friends as well. We went out Saturday night after the event, or after me not being able to make the top 8, and we hit the town hard, and we had a great time. We had an absolute epic evening, to the extent I can't really remember a lot of it, which is always the best nights. But yeah, so really great. Well done to Frontline Gaming, Reese and Frankie. Amazing job again, guys. Really can't fault your effort and dedication to creating a better and better event every year. The convention part of the tournament's definitely growing, and I expect that to get better and better over the next few years. I think that's where there's probably quite a bit of potential to grow the event. It's still predominantly at the moment a tournament, but I can see it really, you know, turning into a convention years going forward, because it's an amazing place to hold an event. It is an absolutely amazing place. So I'm still jet lagged, guys. I'm pretty tired. I'm losing my track of exactly what I was going to say at the end of this video. But what I will say is definitely stay tuned, because I'm going to be doing quite a lot of advanced Tyranid tactics. You guys have asked for it. I've now played this codex a lot, and I feel I'm in a place now to really let you know the hidden tricks of the trade, the little gems in there, the way to make the most of this army. So I'll be back with some advanced Tyranid tactics very soon. But thank you very much for watching this video. Again, thank you for everyone that supported me. If you did enjoy this video, please do thumbs it up, and hit that sub button. Chuck a comment down. I always love hearing what you guys have got to say. But until the next video, thanks for watching. I'll see you again soon. Bye for now.